Joe Schmitz is here, CEO of Peak Retirement Planning, to talk about everything going on in your portfolio. Of course, a lot of folks have uncertainty in the mind, tariff issues, how that could affect the markets. What's the big picture for you after 4 weeks of selling and being in correction mode for many stocks?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very interesting environment we have here, especially with just the unknowns with the tariffs currently in place. I mean, no one really understands if tariffs are going to be a big short-term impact. No one really can see that. I mean, we've seen the impact here lately. We don't really know what's going to happen coming up here, but also like what's the long-term impact? And I personally don't believe it's going to be a huge long-term impact. I mean, obviously time will tell to decide what that actually is going to be the case, but it may cause some inflationary concerns early on. I mean, a lot of times with tariffs, they pass on the cost to the consumer, meaning that the cost of goods are going to be more that we purchased because of the cost to bring it in. And so that could be a consideration. But long term here in the U.S., I think can also be looked at with the perspective of this could be a positive. This could be a positive because it could bring more jobs into the U.S. Because we may be able to do it more efficiently here than the cost of what it is outside. And it also can lead to us having more power and having more control with some of these other countries that we're doing business with. And so I think Trump has a lot of that on the outlook when he's making these decisions here.
Yeah. What's your new book about? And I know that's out and people can get that now on Amazon. Tell us the name of the book and why now was the right time for this book.
Yeah, it's called The Midwestern Millionaire. And this book's all about how the people we serve, hardworking people, the people who've been frugal, they've saved for 30, 40 years. Some people also refer to it as, because we're from the Midwest. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, but we serve clients all across the country. And so we'll get clients on the East Coast or West Coast who say, hey, I'm maybe not that Midwestern millionaire, but I may be that middle class millionaire, or maybe that blue collar millionaire, and whatever you may call it. It's just those people with those Midwestern values that everyone knows about. And so, they've reached a point where they've had $1 million or more saved up. And so they've realized my planning becomes more advanced at this point, especially knowing that retirement today is a lot different than what it used to look like. I mean, retirement today, people are living longer, the costs are higher with inflation, and there's a lot of unknowns and concerns that come up. And so this book is really just all about the strategies that people can be aware of as they're reaching retirement in this phase with all the unknowns, and just understanding their situation's unique. I mean, there's only 10% of people in our U.S. population that have $1 million or more saved up. And so if that is, someone listening here, then that's a book that could definitely help them understand what are the things they need to be aware of, because most of the people say they don't know what they don't know. And so this is a book to really help uncover those gaps to make sure people can take the right steps as they plan out their retirement there.
Yeah, really interesting. And talk about a couple of strategies. I'd love to hear maybe one or two of those. But at the same time, I think about the rate environment. Where does that fit into investing for the future?
Yeah, the rate it's interesting right now. We're probably seeing that there could be three, potential, I think the market's factoring about 3 rate cuts by the end of the year could be something to be aware of. We've also seen that treasury rates have decreased as well, but I think it's important to understand that treasury rates are still among a pretty attractive rate. You can still get a 4 or 5% guaranteed rate of return with specific vehicles out there right now. And so it's something that people really have to ask themselves of, is now the time to lock in some of these interest rates, get a decently reasonable return, especially someone who's in or near retirement, who maybe they don't need the grand slams anymore. Maybe they just need to hit a single or double to get enough returns to be able to get the income that they need to enjoy their retirement. So now could be a time for people to consider. Last 2 years, we've seen 20+ percent returns in the market. Is that going to continue on? Vanguard's did a study that market may only do about 3 to 5%. The equities may only do 3 to 5% over the next 10 years. So obviously not proven that anything can happen, but does it make sense to take some chips off the table at this point is something that a lot of our clients are questioning and considering at this point with where everything is.
Yeah, understood. So what's a strategy for long-term investing? You said you're doing these portfolios, and I know each person's different in their risk tolerance and their time. Their duration can be different. But what would be some themes or something that seem to be working for folks at any age? You can say someone retiring does this, or someone who's 20 does this. You tell me.
Yeah, no, we work with people who are in or near retirement, kind of that 55 to 70. And so what we're seeing be successful there is simply just a diversified approach. Over time, we've seen that large cap and maybe growth companies are going to be more attractive over the last few years. Well, maybe now we're seeing more of a shift to growth and value, also some large cap and some small cap, so more of a blend to really diversify. But like also I mentioned, looking to get chips off the table, looking at more protected vehicles, more fixed income, more bonds, treasuries, things that are more attractive in times like this is something to really consider there. But we also even look to take it a step further. The market's going to do what the market's going to do. We can decide where to invest, we can do rebalancing and all the things that make it efficient. But what are we doing from a tax standpoint? I mean, I think that's one of the biggest concerns with the diligent savers out there we talk about, especially that Midwestern millionaire, as we talked about with my book that I just wrote, is the tax efficiency of investing. I mean, you can add some percentage return on top of your market returns just by being tax efficient. If you have capital gains, making sure you're doing tax loss harvesting. If you have a lot of money in tax deferred vehicles, looking at things like Roth conversions and paying the tax at the most advantageous time, when right now, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, it may get extended. Now could be some opportunities to really take advantage of these rates before they potentially go up higher in the future, knowing where we are at from a current economic standpoint.
And you did say, look, you have growth, you have value, you have large caps, you have small caps. So you do have a diversified portfolio. Do people need to be comfortable with volatility for 2025?
Yeah, I would say get used to it if they're not already used to it with what we've seen over the last few weeks. And so that's where we always try to convince our clients or encourage our clients of maybe it's time to look at protecting some of those assets, as I've talked about, is really get ahead of it. We know there's going to be volatility. We just don't know which direction it's going to go. But what if we just be prepared if we know how much we're going to need to live on in retirement? Why don't we just get ahead of it? And again, maybe we look for a reasonable rate of return versus trying to seek out 30, 40% returns every year may be the consideration. Now, if you're younger and you're watching this, maybe we have enough time to weather that volatility to where if we don't plan to take any money out, well, we can ride those storms. But the problem becomes is we're going to need to take money out where the market's down and we take it out. Now this is a double loss. Do we have the time for it to come back up?
Yeah, Joe Schmitz, CEO, Peak Retirement Planning. Thank you. And of course, your Midwest Millionaire book as well. Joe, thank you.